how do you go about getting your people, in as much as you probably have them in a fairly good spot now, how do you go about getting your people more and more into the kind of roles and positions that they will do best? Because in part, they will find that most satisfying, and in a big way, that yields a much more productive team member, and they also tend to stay. There's this big, the last 4 conferences I've attended, they have this big thing about, oh, I can't do it there, can you? No? All right, just over here. They have this big thing about the war for talent. And they're going, oh, you know, it's going to be so hard to find talent these days because we lost a lot of good people in the last recession. A lot of them just said, heck, if this industry is just going to, you know, nosedive every 5-6 years, then heck, I think I'll find something a little more sane as a place as an industry to stay involved in. So we lost a lot of good people. So the thought was, if you can get your people in the best possible roles, and you can really use some sort of metric-laden information to do that, then everyone benefits. Not only the firm, because you get a better quality output, but actually the people themselves, the individual staff members, because they're in a more satisfying position. And they are more likely to be able to weather a storm, an economic storm. And last but not least, the clients benefit like crazy, because the better, the stronger your team is, and the more that strength is tied to them doing what they do best and understanding what the client is after, and you aligning the two, then the firms thrive. And I'm going to show you a little bit of information about different ways to look at people, so that I would invite you to think about, how do you look at your people, and are there some classifications, some categorizations that you can do that would actually give you an idea of how well their current role fits them. And if it doesn't fit them well, how might you want to migrate them or test the waters of getting them into a more aligned role? Okay, so I was trying to be clever. And so the first name for this presentation that I sent to PSMJ was round pegs in a round holes. You know, the old kind of, oh, you don't put a square peg in a round hole. And I was going, yeah, you got to get the right people in the right kind of positions. And then I realized there was a whole lot of weird overtones to that. So I changed the title. So after we started doing this, and a lot of the stuff that you're going to see is not rocket science. It's not something you've never seen or heard of before. But a lot of firms just don't use it. We just get so busy doing the work that we often don't think about how we're doing the work and who we've got doing what. But once we started doing this stuff, our firm was awarded from a group called, another group, the best architectural workplace in the US, best design, and best collaborative workplace. And my takeaway from this is, because as you can see, the leadership of our firm is not that great, but with this information and getting people in the right places, then you tend to get great outcomes. You tend to be a stronger team. Plus, we've been named several times a Circle of Excellence firm, and we've also been awarded 3 of the last 4 years. I got 2 of the plaques. I think we just got another one last night. Got the highest client satisfaction scores in the country. And it's only because we get people aligned with what they do best, and we gather information from the client to find out what the client's after relative to how they like communication, how they like the relationship, how they like our deliverables, and we just infuse this information all into one kind of big old pot. And so what it does is it tends to align us and keep us aligned. Okay, so the average staff retention for a design firm, 82%, you know, this war for talent. Our staff retention is 98%. So to some degree, while you might look at some of this stuff and go, oh man, that's just that, why would we take the time to even look at that stuff? Because it has a direct benefit on staff retention, and PSMJ tends to say that you lose, and this is before the people even take away a key client, it costs you about $100,000 in all kinds of lost time, effort, replacement costs, etc., get up to speed for the new person, to lose somebody, particularly a key person. So, I mean, there's a real financial value here to keeping your people in the right spot, better satisfied to where they stay put. Yeah.
On the retention, over what time period is that?
It varies a little bit, but this is probably an average over, this is a year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the average is design firms lose about 12% of their people a year on average. So,
Okay, thank you.
so if you can improve that, then there's real financial benefit. Everybody's worried about money and trying to keep people with salary, but the stuff we're looking at today really doesn't cost you anything, and it's the more potent driver to keep people in place. Much more potent than salary. So we also built this thing. This is the thing that we built, and I've got a table outside, and we're not really going to talk about this today, but this was part of our harvesting of information about what effects are we having. And once we started doing this, we had some additional metrics to infuse into our understanding of how we were doing. And where we, and Deltec or any sort of financial management system is a good one. But what we found was if we just looked at those sort of financial metrics, then what it did was it focused us on internal efficiency. How fast are we getting the work done? And not so much external effectiveness. How well were we getting the work done? What was its value as perceived to our clients, as perceived by the people in our staff? How well did our process really sort of work for them? And the more that we collected this external data about the effectiveness of our process, not just the efficiency, the more we just self-adjusted to make it work better. And it really had huge benefits. They have now put us into the top 2%, and this is just a daggum architectural firm, the top 2% of profitability for firms nationwide. So this alignment process really has efficiency as well as effectiveness. Okay, so the basic problem and opportunity. So we provide, let's call it white-collar design services or professional services. But most of us, we get into this profession and we want to be doers. Not many people come along to be trained to be an architect or engineer and go, you know what, I want to sell services. Most of them are going, I want to do this. I want to create these things. And so to get the right people in the right roles, we sort of need to understand what our clients need. I've heard there's a great architectural joke, and I'm sure there's an engineering equivalent that says, if I won the lottery, massive pile of cash, I would practice architecture until the money ran out. And we all kind of grin and go, oh yeah, that's right, the purist. But actually, being in the profession and running a firm for a quarter of a century, I think it's much more noble to actually do a great job for a client, to design well, but to actually help the people who are paying us to help them. They need our help, they want our help. And they're going to have a project, which is their project, but for us to do a great design job on it, for us to really bring value to them, great stuff, great stuff. So the more efficiently we can create these relationships and our deliverables, not just the interactions, but the products that we create, it determines our success. And so often, with the premise of this gathering here being that it's time for us to thrive, or certainly we want that, and when you looked at the economic data from the first presentation, Dave Bernstein from afar, and he goes, wow, there's almost nothing in the foreseeable future that looks like we're going to fall off the cliff again. Actually, the way the federal quantitative easing is going, it looks like a long period of moderate growth, which for me, who I hate those recessions, I'm going, hooray. Yeah, we don't need a roller coaster if you ask me. I'd say, how about just a long sustained period where we can actually create a better firm and receive better benefits financially and maybe even emotionally, maybe an inner satisfaction, maybe integrity kind of stuff. Okay, so if we put the right people in the right roles, if we don't do that, then we're always just working against the odds. We're like pushing a mule up a ladder. We're going against the way things work best. So how do we effectively understand what our clients need, and how do we efficiently create the relationships and deliverables? Well, I say get the people in the right place, and let's look at some ways to categorize them. Okay, so what we do involves two separate types of things. Understanding which is interacting, relating. You got to ask, you got to talk, you got to communicate. And creating, which is a whole different kind of skill set. And I submit to you that our most firms, and yours may be different, most firms are full of these people, and yet what they do has to have this to be successful. And so there's our challenge. So we're all different, and we all have some level of skill in different areas. So everything I'm saying today, it's not like, okay, you're either a red person or a blue person, and there's no mixing. Everybody has different parts, and everybody has different degrees of expertise in almost every skill set. So, but for the purposes of today, we're going to simplify down a little bit for purposes of ease of understanding. All right, so this understanding, if we know what everyone does best, and is what is satisfying to us, then we sort of know how to create the most value to others, because they will do the best work there. All right, so now talk about oversimplification. This is a good one, but just bear with me. Just play along for a minute. So 4 major skill sets, the way I see them, quarter century running a firm, is you've got relating, you've got designing, you've got, hold on, here we go. I know there's a little, there it is. You got relating, designing, producing, and managing. So those 4 pieces just about have to be present in some sort of strategic levels for a firm to be successful. Anybody debate that? Yet often we don't have the mix that would work best. So what do? We push some people from one group into another group. We kind of go, hey, you're really good at doing some stuff. Well, now we got a firm to run. Why don't you just run the firm too? And you're going, I'll do my best. But if it's not the skill set that you're focused on, then it's difficult. Creating relationships. Oh, who here has heard of the I'm a seller doer? What that partially means is that I was one and then I was pushed or walked into the other, but not often with the type of training that would be best. Okay, so relating, you know what this is. This is just being able to communicate effectively, develop relationships, develop some understanding, some empathy, develop the kinds of awareness that says, yeah, I know what he likes. I know how he likes to communicate. The guy at the table next to us is the big writing guy. And I was asking him yesterday, so do you have a presentation or a training session on how to understand how someone that we're working with, our client, how they best like to communicate? He goes, so what do you mean? And I'm going, do they like phone calls? If you get their voicemail, do you leave a long message or short message? How about emails? When do they like emails, and how long an email is workable? And then what about text messaging? Is that okay? Is that actually preferred? In other words, just the mode of communication is something to understand, and we do this naturally with our friends, right? But we often don't treat clients like our friends. And yet the things that we do with our friends about understanding how they like to communicate would be deadly competent and superbly strategically effective with our clients. And I know some of you already do this. So just let me preach to the choir a little bit when I hit one of those points with you. So building relationships, we all do it, but we all do it differently. And to some degree, we have sort of a one-on-one type people, and they go, oh yeah, I like my relationships one-on-one, yep, that's strong. And I'm actually a one-on-one person. And you're going, well, you stand up in front of a group of people. And I'm going, yeah, but really, I've already spotted like 12 people in here that I'm looking at. And I've got a one-on-one thing going with them. And so that's the way I do it. So it's not that you can't play outside your favorite sandbox. It's just that you find ways to adapt. You find ways to use your skill in a different situation. And you got people who are really good with groups. And there's a couple of people in here I know who are good with groups. And they just have that beautiful ability to just get with a room and just instantly bond with like the entire group. Kevin. All right. So we also have actives. Hey, will you stand up and give a presentation? Sure. And we have passives. Hey, will you participate in a group where we're going to sit and meet and we're going to sit and talk and kind of come up with something together? Yeah. So it's important to know the difference here. You know that public speaking is the number one worst public fear, worst fear? And yet so many people do it, even if they're not very good at it. So, and there's also the very passives. Yeah, throw this one in. You know, and we've seen those people, they'll come to a conference, but you won't see a lot of them, you know. And they'll find their corner and wedge in. And so what we're saying is that active communication, those people, the single biggest problem, just to quote George Bernard Shaw, is that some people think communication has taken place, and I got a great example of this, when it hasn't. And we go, hey, how's it going? And they go, well, I think everything's fine. And they don't know. And their sense is that they're not responsible for knowing. They're not responsible for harvesting this information. So if you get the right person in the wrong spot, then you miss out on critical data. All right, I got somebody in my office, and I just love her dearly. And I'll go up to her, and I'll go, hey, how's it going with the so-and-so project? And this is what I get. I don't know. I sent what he asked for, and when he emailed me a couple of weeks ago, I go, oh, okay. And then I've got other people in the office who I can go up to and go, hey, how's it going with the so-and-so project? And they go, oh, I called him yesterday to make sure he got the plans. He wants us to help him explain this to his boss. He likes what we're doing for him, but is concerned about the schedule. I told him I would talk with you since you were very good with timelines. We had lunch on Friday to talk about it, and it turns out we went to the same high school. He's really a neat guy. These are relationship people right here, naturally. And if I told her that she needs to do this, she would shoot me. She would just go, you idiot, I just don't do that. Or some version of that. She would internalize that. She can't do that. I could make her, but she would leave. And I want her to leave. I'm going, okay, well, if you're this kind of person, then I don't expect you to do this kind of thing. I need to find the other people who naturally do that kind of thing and let them do it, right? Don't you have people like this? And I love them. You know what they love to do? Usually, to sit down and just crank. They love that stuff. But I go, hey, how about you mix it up with the clients? They're going, I asked her once, I love her. I said, hey, you want to go out to lunch with a client? And you know what she told me? She goes, ugh. She goes, I don't know why anyone would want to do that because I got to sit and watch them chew. I was like, God, I bet I've been out to dinners and lunches with 1,000 people I've never thought about. I was watching them chew. But when we look at it, there's a bunch of triggers. I don't know, and she's okay with not knowing. And emailed. This is their favorite mode of communication is email. Why? It's impersonal. I can do it in the dark of night. You know, I fire this thing off to you. You know, it lobs over like a cannon shot, you know. And it's all just kind of like, yeah, well, I don't know, I emailed him, never heard back. Whereas these people, oh boy, I called, I wanted to make sure he wants us to help. They're identifying what the client wants and needs. He likes, he's concerned about. We had lunch, we both. They bond. They do it naturally. Okay, so good relators, they tend to be into leadership. Why? Because they just work with other people. Leadership is just with other people. And they're pretty good with marketing. Why? Because they like to go find out what people want. Because then they know what to give them that will make them happy and make them loyal clients. Plus, they tend to be pretty good at client strategy. Because when they know this stuff about the clients, they can help a firm position themselves to be most valuable. This is not just something that you smear onto a firm like veneer, like icing on a cake. This is baked in from the beginning, right? If not, it's sort of like a sham. If it's not baked in from the beginning, and if the ingredients are not sound and accurate, then how can a firm thrive? Plus, they're team builders. Okay? So good relators, their most useful tool is communication. You know a relator because they're always kind of getting information to you. They're asking you stuff. And you know, if they know something and they know I am interested in that, they'll tend to share it with me. And I go, yeah, that's great. That's great. I go, wow, he knows me and he knows I like that stuff and he just sent me some. I like him. We tend to like people who like us, right? So a lot of times the relators, they simply go, hey, they emote and they go, hey, yeah, yep. And you go, wow, he likes me. And you go, yeah, he's okay. So it's just a natural tendency that of what we do as human beings. And the relators, the good relators, do it naturally. Okay, so design, the second piece. Well, not to get too in-depth, but I had a design professor in graduate school, and he was just a brilliant guy. And we were all just thinking, design, yeah, there's just design, you know, it's just like a single path, and you just learn to travel it. And we were all going to just do amazing stuff. And he begins to say, well, there's a bunch of different ways people design. And according to your project type and or your client type, you really ought to look at, from my standpoint, how your people design and how to put the right kind of design approach on the right project. And what my teacher said was, okay, there's a bunch of different inputs. There's the technical input, the physical input, experiential, the social. If somebody's designing plazas, I just went over to the whatever plaza is right outside here, and it's got the big Christmas tree and the ice skating rink and everything. The guy was walking me through and he was going, oh man, we've just redone this recently and it's really been successful. They created a social space. They also created sort of an experience. Now these things tend to be sort of like monuments. The physical thing, I like to create physical things. And the technical tends to be, yes, I created something that does something. So depending upon what kind of project you have, the optimum designer depends upon the degree or the ability and the specific type of skill and approach. Now, I do believe that most designers have multiple hats they can wear as far as what they can design, but they tend to operate best in a primary arena. Okay, now you're going, all right, tell me a little more about this. Well, if your inputs are technical or social, you tend to design systems. This is something like transportation, great systems. Railway, airports, where there's a whole bunch of things going on. Systems. Technical and physical, they tend to design things. Physical and experiential, they tend to design monuments. Now for architects in particular, you know, they kind of go, oh yeah, we like to do something that's going to be this grand, glorious thing. And so we're going to design this thing, and we're going to also sort of do it to where it evokes an amazing reaction. Anybody been to the Vietnam Memorial in D.C.? Wow. Wow, is that strong. And they knew how to design that. Who is it? Maya Lin? If I probably mispronounced that, but the designer did an amazing job of creating an experience. And last but not least, if you're designing a social thing and an experiential thing, you tend to design places. Now many of us are involved in designing structures, but the spaces in between them, as they call them, the negative spaces, are spaces that are also designed or certainly created as we put positive elements in place. And so a lot of times we're designing things in between the things that we think we're designing. So there's all kinds of design. And to look at your designers and go, all right, what do they tend to do? I invite you to take this diagram to them and go, where do you think you tend to work? Where do you like most to work? See what they say. Okay, produce. 60-80%, and this is my rough calculation, yours might be a little different, of a typical project's efforts are spent on producing the deliverables. Wow, that's a lot of the basic work that we do. So you go, well then production's pretty important, right? Oh, daggum right. And the efficiency of production has the greatest impact on the cost. Now, I'm not going to profit yet, but it's the greatest effect on the cost of a project, right? The efficiency of what you do, of how you do, the thing that you do the most of, it's going to affect your cost dramatically. So the producing, which, when I came out of school, I was going, I want to be a designer. Yeah. And the thought of production, I was like going, ah. But actually, this is one of the most important pieces of our firm to get right. The efficiency of production has the greatest effect on the cost of the project and therefore its profitability. Now that does involve setting a fee that's going to cover your cost plus a good profit. But if the cost is too high and your fee has to get too high to be profitable, often you'll find it problematic to get a client to hire you, particularly long term. So producers tend to have interests and abilities in these areas. They love drawing software. You ask them about, what about the BIM and the and they go, oh yeah, that's and this and this and this. They love this stuff. Computers, technical tools, they like efficiency. They like organization. Me, I'm like, I'm not in this quadrant. And so when someone says, hey, let's line it all up nice and neat, I go, why? Because it's just going to get out of whack. I'd more like to deal with the chaos and sort of the dynamic flow of things and go, hey boy, if you can just, I don't mind herding cats. And someone said, oh yeah, what's even worse than that? Herding butterflies. Oh, 3D. So I'm going, yeah. There's a great video on herding cats. It has these ranchers, on the horses, and they all got cats everywhere, and they're just going, man, it's hard work, but it's doable. It's a living, it's a hard one. And I'm going, I love that stuff. But I don't do well with this. And boy, if they made me the producer at the office, then the office would sink like stone. I love these people because they do what I don't do well. And we all sort of have that in our offices, particularly if you're in leadership. You're going, I really like having some people here who make the office work better than a whole bunch of people just like me would make it work. Producers tend to like quiet, focused work. They like calm personal spaces. They like comfortable ergonomic work spaces. Ergonomics are big to these people. Why? Because this is their position. And you know what? They love those tools. So for your producers, and probably most of your firms have most producers, or mostly producers, pay attention to these things. Plus they like structure and organization. They love the org chart. You got that org chart? What now? How is this going to work? Now, what about this and that? They want it kind of lined up. These people, if you graph things out for them, if you chart it out, they kind of, okay, here's how it's going to work, and then we're going to come back to here. They love it. Why? Because they seek order. They want to understand. Why? Because it helps them be efficient. They see their place. They see where their role is. They see where their contribution is, and they can adjust and set themselves up to perform well. You lead them into chaos, you tell them to herd cats, they're going, no thanks, I'm out of here. Okay, they somewhat like a defensible space with minimal interruptions. Now that's contrary a little bit to modern office design, which is what our firm does a lot of, but you need to give them a little bit of felt territory. If they're just out in the open, like, okay, you have no office, or no space to work, you just come in every day and just pick a spot and work there. They tend to get a little itchy with that. They want their spot. All right, producers, you know what I'm talking about, including these. They may not say I need to have a desk that looks just like my daddy's desk, but they want a spot. And actually, some of them like the ability to move around, but they don't want to have the chance of not having a spot when they come in. Plus, their sense of organization, remember I said organization? Their sense of organization may not always be visually apparent. Do we have any stackers in the office? In the room here? I'm kind of a stacker. I'm a reformed stacker. If you look in my closets, that's where the stacks go. Because I say, well, I can't leave them on the desk. But ultimately, as long as they can find their stuff and as long as their organizational system works for them, hey, it works for them. Think this is bad, you should see the inside of my head. Now, this is really contrary to what I'm sort of saying because everyone tends to use the system of organization or of storage that works for them. Now, often they can go through blinding flashes of the obvious and go, you know what, I'm going to be different. Had a guy, when we moved our office 2 years ago, he used to have 2 tons of paper on his desk, and most of it was plans. He moved, it all went away. It all went away. And I'm going, Wow, so how'd you do that? And he goes, oh, I just looked at it and I said, I don't want to move all that stuff. And, just bleep that word out. And I didn't need all that stuff. He goes, yeah, I just figured I'd just move what I needed. And all of a sudden, he's got like the desk with hardly anything on it. All right, typical roles for these: construction drawings, specifications, quality assurance, project reporting and analysis. These people love this stuff. And I love them that they love it. Because I love seeing this stuff, love seeing this get done. Okay, manage. Managers and teams and team or task organizers. So it isn't just someone who's got a manager title after their name. There's a lot of people out there who do management jobs, management work, who don't have that official title. And we all sort of know it. You can look at a group of people, and you put 4 or 5 people in a room and kind of go, okay, we're going to lock the door. You guys got to figure out how to get out. And within 30 seconds, a leader will develop. And the supporters will surround them. Kind of go, oh yeah, okay, what do you want to do? We're going to take the curtains, tie them together, bust the window, and we're going to trail down. It's only 2 stories, 4 stories. Often combine technical skills related to the industry with an ability to enhance a team's output. And to identify these people, even if they're producers, but they're managing producers, it's a very wise thing. Because many of them start out as producers. We tend to hire when we're busy. I got a slide on this. So we tend to hire producers. Because we go, oh, we got a bunch of stuff to produce. So the 2 main types of managers are the promoters. Lure them to the light. That's their motto. Okay, I'm going to lure them to the light. Yep, here's where we're trying to go. Here's where we're trying to be as a firm. And they lure them to the light. They make it attractive to come to this kind of behavior. It's very potent. It's harder to do than the old military kind of controller push them to the goal. Vince Lombardi, did you see that Hail Mary pass last night? Holy smokes! That guy just went, please, guys, just somehow, and the guy caught it, and it was just like, oh, amazing. But anyway, but this push to the goal, their main tools are measuring and telling. Well, with promoters, their main tools are communication and asking. Now, I got to tell you, now in the military, even in the military, they're doing more and more of this. This model is becoming less and less the most effective model. So as you look at your managers, you need to figure out, are they this kind of manager or that kind of manager? Because this has a lot of places in the modern design industry. This has fewer and fewer places. This is when your kid starts to run, a little tyke, starts to run out in the road to chase a ball, and here comes a car, and you give them that blood-curdling scream about stop. You got to act like there's no discussion about it. He's got to stop. But for the most part, you're luring them to the light. That's going to be the most effective. Okay, so the right type depends on the project type and the makeup of the team members. Some team members respond to one type a lot differently than the others. Most of us are like that. Okay, so managers versus leaders. And not to get into too much depth here, but these are the people that we're kind of going, yes, they will structure a system and to make it work. The leaders will figure out how to get the people in the system to make it work. So, communication style, one way. These people do a lot of memos, or emails. Those people do a lot of conversation. And they'll tend to be the ones visiting around the office going, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? Hey, how's that project going? And how's this? Because their interaction style is always two-way. They're trying to find out. Their interacting style, directing. Okay, I want you to come over here and you to sit over there and no, we get this lined up here. Y'all need to fill in these middle chairs right here. Promoting will be, hey, if we can sort of spread out to where everyone's got enough room to set your stuff down, that would be great. And you go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I see we all have a benefit there. Plus, the typical role, more tactical. Here's what we're going to do step by step. Leaders, strategic. Here's our goal. Here's what we're trying to do. And so the group tends to understand, okay, well, if we're trying to build more value with our clients, because that produces better benefits for all parties, then it sort of gets them The leaders get their people thinking also about how might we even do this better than what I'm suggesting. The tactical tends to be direct, A, B, okay, you there, you here. And this is, I don't mean to cast aspersions on this as some sort of a bad thing. There's times where this is exactly what's needed. Remember, a lot of the producers, they say, hey, I would like direct understanding of exactly what I need to do. I want to know exactly what the deadline is. Don't tell me as soon as possible. That means nothing to me. Hurry up means nothing to me. You tell a person who wants direct information to hurry up, they go, you just put huge stress on me. It's like, give me a deadline. And let me talk with you about it to see if it's rational, practical. Okay. All right, so now, can y'all read this? Kind of small. All right, this is going to be interesting. If you have a pen, pencil, anything to write with, we're going to take 2 minutes here. So I want you to just look at this. Does everybody taking the Myers-Briggs? Yeah, okay. Do you know what you are? Forgotten? You may have changed even if you knew. Okay, we're going to do a quick Myers-Briggs here. Okay, so are you outwardly or inwardly focused? Now, there's no right or wrong here. And every one of these categories has a really potent role inside almost every firm. So write down, are you an E? Are you outwardly focused or inwardly focused? And there is some information that tends to help you decide. All right, write down E or I. And if you, some of you like me, you're a little bit different at home or around your friends than you are at your office. And so write down how you are in your office. Okay, E or I. Now, the second one is, how do you prefer to take in your information? Do you want to focus on the reality of things? Just give me the facts. Remember Joe Friday, Dragnet? Just give me the facts, man. Or do you want to imagine the possibility of how things could be? So, are you an S, sensing, or an N, intuitive? Got that? All right. Now, the next one is, how do you prefer to make decisions? You like to think it through, get some reasoned logic, let's line it up, knock it out, this has got to make sense, right? Or do you base your decisions on your personal values and how your actions affect others? Value harmony, forgiveness, like to please others, point out the best in people. Are you a T, thinker, or F, a feeler? Write that down. And now you're going to say, oh yeah, but sometimes it's this, what do you do typically? Last but not least, how do you prefer to live your outer life? Do you like to have your matter settled? All right, let's get this settled. Or do you prefer to leave your options open? Are you a J, judging, or P, perceiving? Got that one down? Okay. Anybody need to see this? Okay. All right, there they are. So now take your 4 letters and look at your box and read it. I'll give you a minute. I'll read mine. Does that sound like you? Yeah. Yeah. And that's good stuff. And for your job to fit that kind of thing is a beautiful thing. There's a great book out called While We Work. And it says the luckiest people, and unfortunately there's not a whole lot of us, it's not a great high percentage, they end up doing work that fits the way they are. What I'm suggesting is that we all have the ability to migrate a little bit in our job to doing it in a way, or even evolving our job to where we're doing more of things that fit the way we tend to do things. Tend to do things best. Okay, watch this. And this slide, these slides are all on the, I think your thumb drive thing. All right, so now look at your category, and see if that's also you. This is kind of role. Yeah? Now, there's a great book, even though the title sounds kind of whooshy. It's called Please Understand Me. And what they do is they take each one of these categories, and there's 16 different ones, and they go, how does that person, ENFP, how does that person relate with an ESTJ? That's my wife. And it goes, the relationship between these two people, here's going to be their biggest challenge. Here's the communication ability. Here's the tendency for them to sort of cover each other's bases or complement each other. Here's the tendency for them to be in conflict. to where you can begin to go, if you've got some direct reports or if you have someone you report to, find out what they are, take what you are, and I would say get that book and look at it, because it tells you all kinds of cool things about how to relate most effectively. Doesn't matter what type it is, what type you are. So is there anybody else here? Nope? Yeah, well, there has to be, one crazy guy. Okay, so some firms use personality index tools, Myers-Briggs. Anybody use Myers-Briggs during hiring? Yeah. We use about 4 different tools, because our sense is that each one of these tools has a different way of determining, inventorying sort of personality or tendency. And if you can figure out how a potential team member processes information, and I would even do this with your current staff, because often we think we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And so to find out something that may have been hidden and make it visible usually increases everyone's awareness and increases their ability to work together well. So it helps identify where they do their best work, and using multiple tests, from my standpoint, is a great thing to do, because it tends to sort of vet out some of the eccentricities of a few of the tests. Okay, identifying skill sets. Okay, this is really simple, but this is what I did in my firm a while back. I drew this circle on a piece of paper. I didn't make it some sort of, now we're going to determine your future. I just drew this circle and divided it into 3 pieces, 3 quadrants, and I said project producer, project designer, client manager. And I took it to each person in the office, and I just kind of went up to them, not like, okay, now we're going to decide your fate forever. And I just slid that to them and gave them a Sharpie. You know what a Sharpie is, big black marker. And I said, would you circle where you think your best contribution is? Circle it. I got stuff like this. I said, it doesn't have to be just one quadrant. And probably no one's just going to circle the whole circle. So I got a bunch of stuff like this. Project producer and likes to get into design. That's one of my teams. Most are producers. But it also told me a couple of things. I had to look closely at some of the people who said they were client people, client managers. Some of that I think they were imagining. So I sort of had to factor in some of the stuff about what I knew about their results. But it also told me that they like people, It's like, okay, but there's a difference between liking people and really being able to manage a relationship, really manage a relationship. And those that manage relationships, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's hard work. It isn't just kind of like, hey, let's go get a drink. It's more like, hey, we need to have a hard discussion. Okay. So I took this and I began to kind of go, well, if a design person, if their circle kind of came into the client side, well, they're pretty good at proposing solutions to clients. That's the edge there. And if a producer kind of goes into a client, if their circle kind of did this, well, it kind of meant that they like responding to clients. Hey, can you tell me how big this thing is? Or could I add another room to this? And these people are going, yeah, I don't mind responding. But don't make me initiate stuff. The core of the client piece is that you initiate communication. So everybody's edge, everybody's sort of fill-in of the adjacent quadrant tends to tell you things about what they are comfortable doing. And that's a pretty potent one right there, because if you've got mostly producers, you want to know what they tend to be able to do with design and clients. Okay, now this one's an interesting one. Everybody knows about this one. The seller doer. We all start out, it's like if you started a firm, it was just you, well, you're a doer. And then people go, I really like the way you do this stuff. And so all of a sudden, you become, well, we need some sellers to go out there and sell this stuff that the rest of us doers are doing. And so often, a doer is pushed up to the very top and often does not have the background or focused training to be a seller/leader. So this is a very crude category, but I keep hearing about this. And it's like, yeah, you need a bunch of grinders, then you got some minders, then you got some finders. I think this does a fairly good representation of the percentage of the amount of people you need in each category. If you turn this thing upside down, we got a whole bunch of finders, no one to really produce. Oh, that firm will last 4 months. As soon as you find those 30 projects and can't get them done, serious problems. But basically, this is technical training. There's skill set growth to help these people work on quality, speed, and collaboration to make them more efficient. Remember, that's their core drill, efficiency. Up here, the upper part of the triangle, the skill set growth is on sales and management. I'd even replace leadership here, just to get more the lure to the light. How do these people learn to be more effective in guiding groups to better results? Okay, I don't know if you've seen this one before. This is a good one. Introverted, extroverted. So you can put yourself on this quadrant, and you can also put almost anybody else in your team on this quadrant. Flexible and fixed. You know what? I don't mind things being kind of open and loose. Yeah, we'll just keep navigating as we go through. Versus, no, I need things nailed down right now. I go to my wife, hey, why don't we go see a movie? She goes, well, what do you want to go see? When do you want to go see it? What theater? I go, I don't know. I mean, let's just take a look at the movies and see. Well, I need to know. I mean, I'll need to put our dog in. So we work it out, but I'm on this side, she's on that side. So watch this. So what you tend to get is if you are extroverted and flexible, you tend to be a promoter. Controller, if you're more fixed and extroverted. Introverted and flexible tend to be supporter and analyzer. So ultimately, your relators tend to be in this category, your managers tend to be over here, your designers tend to be here, and also your financial people in your office. God, things like an interrogation lamp. And your producers tend to be here. And if their core mechanism for the way that they work is too different from what they're doing, they won't be good and they'll be stressed. So one of our goals is to remove the stress of people in the jobs that they're doing. Okay, now generational differences, baby boomers, Gen X, and Gen Y, the millennials. And I'm not going to go in through all this, but basically, according to your age, not to overgeneralize, and I know that there's some very young baby boomers and there's some very old millennials, but basically, we're after different things. And if we're aware of that, particularly if you are saying you're going to sell your firm at some point, then to make it attractive to millennials, to let millennials come and stay and grow there is very potent, is a very potent internal transition strategy. If you don't do that, you won't have that group of lieutenants coming up through the firm. Plus, there's things that you can do, and I'm a feedback guy. So even with baby boomers, if you ask them for feedback, oh, they'll tell you. Because a lot of us baby boomers grew up with this kind of like, okay, we need to tell. You know, we need to figure things out and tell. And so ask them for their feedback. Also give them feedback. But they often are not the best ones to go, hey, we're going to get a whole bunch of feedback and see what everybody here thinks about you. We're going to all write it down, then we're going to look at it together with you in the room. And you're just going, just shoot me now, Lord, just shoot me now. And so you have to approach feedback, which is a potent tool for any category, differently with these groups. The millennials, they go, when do I get to review? And you go, oh, we have an annual review. And they go, oh, God, I wait 12 months for information about how I'm doing? It's like, forget it. Some say, oh, they're just impatient. I actually find it to be a pretty powerful driver that they want to know right now about what's going on. So we just had an interaction. We just had a meeting. And I go what? So how'd that work? And you just experienced it, and so you'll be able to give me some good constructive information about your expectations and how your perception of what I did, my process, what I created, my product, how it fit your expectations. Bingo. The millennials are thriving for this information. You have a good way of giving it to them, and you will be giving them something that not only makes them more effective, but it makes them more satisfied, which means they stay. War for talent? Best way to win a war for talent is hire good people and then figure out how to keep them. Okay, so what do your people think they do well? You can do something as simple as what we did and let everyone kind of go, yeah, here's where my contribution is. It's a very powerful way of letting them tell you something. But also, what do the people they work with think? You can almost hand out another set of those things and go, so what do you think about what Bob does? Where do you think his biggest contribution is? Plus, what do the leaders think? They see things from a different perspective. And what you're looking at is, what's their current skill, what's their potential for growth, and what's their flexibility? Not just where they are now, but where they could go. Okay, setting assignments. Obviously, we've been sort of talking about this already, but place the people where they do the best job, which is typically where they will be the most satisfied. And remembering this, many people are hired as a reaction to a current need. Remember those, I had sort of equal amounts? Remember the pyramid a minute ago? So when we hire, because we're going, oh my God, we're swamped with work, we need to hire some people, we tend to hire producers. Because they go, yeah, man, I can produce some work. Now, the more strategic hires are according to your real need, but often the needs for sales and management, leadership and design are often more important things than urgent things as far as a felt need. But when we hire only producers or almost all producers, we get too many producers. And then we start pushing them into roles they're not good at. And a lot of design firms end up that way. We end up more like this. I'm not even sure that the producer's box isn't too small on this one. So you go, all right, well then what we tend to get is, we tend to get a bunch of people, like I mentioned before, the producers who can come into the client side. This is, management, client management, who can come into this side and they become sort of producing relators versus relating producers. The blend along these edges is an important thing to understand because it tells you their flexibility. It tells you their ability to kind of work a little outside their main focus area. To understand that lets you put the right people together to where they fit well. Most projects, from a quarter century of watching projects sort of run through our office, most projects begin here. Why? Why does a project begin in that quadrant? What's a project? Yes, yes, yes. And a project is a problem. Not for us. A client has a problem, right? Well, we just go, oh yeah, sounds like a project. The relators tend to go, oh, you have a problem. Oh, you know what? I think we can help you with that. You know what? Actually, I think we could design a solution to that. And I think our design solution might be a very good solution for you. Wow, boy, we could look at that budget and schedule. Yeah, boy, I think we could really design a solution. This is what we sell, right? This is how we sell it, by finding the clients with the problems. And not being too quick to turn it into a cursory rote project. If you keep it their problem that you want to help them solve, it's a beautiful dynamic. This is where we find work. This is what we sell. And this is how we produce the deliverables that are basically going to get our project built. Now, if you remember Frank Stasiowski about 3 years ago, he put this book out and he goes, the future, I think this is going to be all that we do. And everybody just gasped like, what do you mean? No drawings? And he goes, this is where the intellectual capital that we develop that has so much value, that's where it exists. Primarily here, but you do have to find those with the problem before you can create a solution and get paid for it. So one of the things that we may want to look at for long term, particularly with you with young firms, is how do we make this extremely strong? We still want to keep efficiency going here, but how do we make this really strong? Because ultimately, I do believe you will have a more valuable firm if you are potent at this than if you are just potent at this. This is a commodity firm. This is an industry thought leader firm. And this kind of expertise and expert status is powerful, is potent, and usually produces lower liability and higher profits. So this is very important here. And the way most projects tend to go is we find the problem the client's problem, we create a design solution, and then we produce that solution. And for the really smart firms, there's a last step. They go, how did that work? Now, I'm an advocate for asking for feedback from the clients from the very beginning of a project, so you don't get off track. But at the very end, you do want to find out from these people, how did that work? What do you think of the solution? How's it going? Why? Why would you ask them that?
To improve your company and to provide additional communication with that client for follow-on work.
Yes, perfect, perfect. Because the moment you come in and go, hey, how'd that work out? I go, oh, it worked pretty well here. We ended up with a so-and-so, so, oh, okay, well then, you know what, maybe we should put better bearings in the pump or something, or whatever it is. And so that client knows that you're interested, you're continuing the relationship, even after the fact, and if they've got another problem, that's a good time for them to relate it to you. You're dead on. And yet so often we don't do that step. We kind of finish the project and we're gone. And particularly after it's built and let's say the structure of the facility is occupied and underway, when the client's beginning to really experience what is often a very pleasurable, satisfying kind of, oh yeah, this really works well. We don't show up. But anyway, but to make that circle work and make it a continuum is a lot more potent. I remember a guy I worked for a while, he goes, don't chase projects, develop clients. And I'm going, well, of course. I mean, it's what we do. Okay, so last but not least, and this is the last couple of slides here. What time do we have? Are we out? 56, 4 minutes. All right, so this really just says, identify what your people do and do best. And make sure they're in their prime role. Make sure that what they're doing the most of, excuse me, what they're doing the most of is what they're best at. What they're doing the most of is what they're best at. You make that work, you make that true in your organization, incredible potency. And then understand the edges. And how good is a producer at working with the designers? How good is a designer at working with the producers? And make sure that you put the people with the right kind of overlap together on a project. You kind of know when that's happening, but when you start looking at it as more of a system, then you tend to have more order to it. And even though I'm not the order guy, I'm kind of the outcome guy. This produces a better outcome. Okay, so training. Train to the person's strengths. We often go, okay, well, you're really good at CAD there, but you're not really the client guy, so we're going to train you in client stuff. And you're going, I told you, just shoot me now. And you're going, you don't really understand me. So I'm going, you're really good at CAD stuff? We're going to train you in CAD stuff. Because we want to make you the expert. I'd much rather have a firm full of high-powered experts than a firm full of generalists. It's a more potent firm. And it's a lot more potent on the bottom of that cycle, the circle we just looked at. The goal is to develop this team of specialists and applaud and market the person's strength, right? Identify the strengths, train to it, increase it, market it. Because that's your asset. Cross-training, minor training, and make sure, remember where I said some people kind of cross the line? That's where you do your cross-training. Don't try to train everybody and everything. Focus that training on where they are with a little bit of what they do the most of, with a little bit of cross-training into the piece where they sort of move into or overlap into the next quadrant. Identify how training supports the primary skill. So when you show them how you propose to train them, tell them why. Here's why, because this will help with so-and-so. We see the way you're interacting, and boy, it's really working well. I think this will help. Make assignments that fit the person's strengths. Categorize the assignment, technical, transactional, relationships, and allow for growth, but minimize stretch. Don't keep putting your people, from my standpoint, don't keep putting your people in places where they don't do their best work. No matter how much you're going, well, it's just for a little while, it's always going to backfire to some degree. Track results with reports and feedback. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of your financial software that can track the efficiency, but I'm a proponent of getting the feedback both internally and from the clients to see how it really worked from the outsider's point of view. Because how I think this thing went today is one thing. But I will, if you leave your business card, I will send you one of the surveys that we use with our clients. I'll send you the survey, and the survey will say, how well did this presentation go? What about its content? How responsive was I? And you will be able to give me the feedback. Now guess what? Someone's going to go, wow, man, you rocked it. That's great stuff. And someone's going to say, you're an idiot, and I'm not sure why they let you in here. In other words, the information that I'm getting back is relative to what you were expecting and how you saw what I did. So it tells me about you. The feedback tells the person about who's giving the feedback, so I can understand better my audience. So if you inject this information into the stream, it makes people more aware, and it tends to make them more flexible and more potent in their job. So leave your card. I will send you the survey, and you can see the way that we tend to collect our feedback from our clients, but you can also give me some feedback from today. Okay, so in summary, identify each team's primary and secondary strength, categorize project needs, and relate to this one, assign staff by their strengths, train to each staff member's strengths, and track results. Now, most of you already do some of this, maybe a lot of it, but I would advise you that you may be surprised if you go in and categorize everyone's strengths from their standpoint and from their collaborator standpoint and the leader standpoint, and see how well you've got them into position. Because ultimately, what you're after is the final result of being an extremely strong firm. All right, there's a thing called a Net Promoter Score. And our firm has been doing this for a while, and so I'm kind of going, well, this is a pretty simple index of how well your firm is viewed, the strength of your firm, by outsiders, by your clients. And it's a weird scale, if you ask me. So 0 is worst and 10 is best about what your clients think of you. And they say that any score between 0 and 6, that those people just are not convinced of your value. I'm going, really? 6 sound pretty good, but nope, they're detractors. This is the Net Promoter Score categorization. 7 to 8, a score of 7 to 8, they're passives. They're like, oh yeah, they're all right. 9 and 10 are promoters. They're loyal. They will preach about you. They will tell people about you and say, oh, you ought to go work with them. So they say, collect all your scores, and you take your promoters, your points from the promoters and the points from the detractors, and you get your Net Promoter Score. Okay, the average for businesses in the US is 35. The high growth firms, and this is coming from PSMJ data, is 50. Ooh, so to be more compelling to your clients makes it easier to grow, right? Makes sense. Circle of Excellence firms, 75. Wow, because what they're doing is having a better effect, a felt effect on their clients. Apple, anybody heard of the company Apple? 80. Wow. Anybody heard of Time Warner? You love to hate them. They're minus 35. Minus 35. Has anybody seen they've gone to taking out full page ads in the Sunday New York Times, and it says, we know you hate us, we know we're horrible, but you know what, we're going to get a little bit better. We're not going to be quite as bad as we used to be. They're coming out with it. They're going, all right, we're just going to own it. We're just going to own it. We're going to go, you know what, I know I'm horrible, but I'm not going to be as bad. In the future, I'm not going to be quite as bad. And you've seen that advertising. They got the guy listening to his phone. He's listening to that, on hold music. He goes, if you just love our own hold music, we got bad news for you, because you aren't going to hear as much of it, because we're going to answer your phone call sooner. You know what? Okay, now not to brag, but there was really a lot of hard work in this. That's my firm score. And so this stuff works. This is not some sort of, oh my God, he just talked about a bunch of pansy-ass stuff. Oh, yeah. This stuff really works. And remember that first slide I gave you? It said our firm's retention. We hardly lose anybody. And I love having those people stay, because once I invest in them, I don't want to lose them. So this stuff actually promotes the kind of health and satisfaction that people stay at. Why do people leave firms? Number one, they don't feel like their skills are recognized. Ooh, why don't we find out what they are? Number 2, they don't feel like that their accomplishments are celebrated. Wow, gather some feedback, find out when they knock it out of the park, applaud. Number 3, they don't feel like they get the support that they need when they have an issue. Wow, collect some feedback, find out when they sort of fall below the ice there, fall below met expectations, and then go, what can I do to help? That's the 3 most potent things that keep people at a firm. There's no money in any of that. There's no salary. People go, oh, I got to pay them to stay. No, you got to treat them well to stay. And well means give them some satisfying work and measure the results and let them see the metrics. Okay, so that's it. So I'm going to leave this diagram here. So questions. Does everyone do this? To some degree, perhaps? Yes, ma'am.
What's your experience with people who feel satisfied?
They
feel satisfied by certain work.
Yes.
But their strength is somewhere else. What do you do with that gap?
That's a good question. She was asking, I'll repeat it for this. If someone feels satisfied, but they want to be doing something else?
No, they're satisfied with doing one thing.
Yes.
Their strength
Tends to be elsewhere.
Somewhere else.
Strength tends to be elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know what? I think some of us want to be, that we have some messaging that's sent to us usually before the age of 6 that we need to be this. And often it comes from parents or some sort of strong role model. And we're not that. And so we often are striving or thinking that we need to be over here when really we're best here. So why don't we just talk to them and go, so what do you want? Well, if you would like to try some of this stuff, why don't we give you some assignments? Or remember how most people drew their circle and they went over the edge? Well, let them creep into that quadrant that they're looking at being more into. But let them do it, as I would suggest, as more of an evolutionary change than a revolutionary. Because sometimes you give somebody what they asked for and it doesn't work out and they get embarrassed and they leave. So ultimately, you're trying to help them understand where is their best contribution and where do they have the most satisfying role. Does that help?
A bit. I had experience at my former firm where there was a couple of people that believed their strength to be in an area that they were not strong. Those people didn't end up staying because that gap could never be filled, or else it would put the firm at risk.
I understand. She was saying that sometimes it's really hard to get everyone satisfied. My sense is, for whatever it's worth, is it's never a leader's job to make everybody happy. That's their job. And the moment you see someone who is not a good fit for whatever reason, and often it's because their expectations are unrealistic, at least for your group or the industry, is to understand that you don't have a good fit and to sever the relationship. There was a guy in the panel this morning, and he was saying, yeah, boy, we've had this person, constant, chronic kind of complaints about this and that, didn't want to do it. And they went, well, he's not with us anymore. We realized it wasn't a good fit. So sometimes the feedback that people give you by saying, I'm not happy, is something that you won't be able to fix, and to even try to fix it is probably a waste of resources, and maybe even leads them to believe that it's now your problem to make me happy, and it almost makes everyone else think that, well, heck, if I complain to you and say I'm not happy, then you'll go to work on trying to make me happy. Boy, that's a bad loop to get into. Does that help? What else? What else? Oh, you guys are way too pragmatic. So poke some holes in this. Why don't most people do this? Takes too much time? It took us about less than a week, probably 20 hours, to get all that data we did with the circles and whatnot. And then once we sort of stuck it up on the board, we saw things instantly.
I would say
yes?
People don't do it because it's unconventional. Yeah.
And yet when you see it, doesn't it make sense?
Yeah, of course it makes sense.
You know what? I think, and as an architect, as a member of the design industry, I'll put this on me. I think we tend to grow up and want to be designers or want to get into this business and do. And so we want to sit and do. And so the thought of sort of making this into a business at times seems contrary to our primary mission. But often what I've found is if you infuse just enough practical level of organization or of understanding, and particularly in your people product and your best resource, your people, then it actually improves their satisfaction, their quality of work, probably their quantity of output also, but it improves it in a way that they can have more of what they really came for. So it isn't what we tend to do because it's not what we learn to do, but it's a way of helping others get more of what they're really after. So I think that's how we stumbled upon it, because I just kept looking at it and going, yeah, you know, I got one of my principals who was that person on the left. And I was going, you know what, I got to get her out of all client management. I got to let her be a producer. And she was a lot happier. And I had a client manager who was trying to do a producer. She was like Attila the Hun. And it was like, oh, I got to get her out of that. And now that she's out of it, she's a lot happier and a lot more productive. So part of it is a leadership's ability a leader's ability to go, what can I do to make this thing better, to make it work better? And not adding stress, but actually reducing stress. Does it make sense? All right, well, if you leave your card, I'll send you a survey, and you're welcome to have one of mine if you have any questions about this stuff or how we did it or whatever. Thank you all.